Keeping your options open sounds smart. Don't commit too early. Don't lock yourself into the wrong path. Don't rush anything. And that advice gets repeated so often that most people never even question it. But if you're in your 20s, keeping your options open isn't protecting you. It's quietly costing you direction, confidence, and momentum. And the worst part, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything wrong while it's happening. It feels responsible. It feels patient. It feels mature. I want to talk about why that mindset backfires, because I lived inside it longer than I should have, and I see a lot of people doing the same thing without realizing what it's taking from them. Here's why this mindset is so seductive. When you keep your options open, you don't have to risk being wrong. You don't have to fully commit to a career that might not work. You don't have to commit to an identity you might outgrow. You don't have to choose a direction that might fail. You get to say things like, I'm still figuring it out, I'm exploring, I've got time. And in your early 20s, that feels reasonable. Everyone tells you you're young, you don't need to have it all figured out, don't rush into anything. So you stay flexible. You have commit to things, you dabble, you prepare, you wait. And none of that looks like a problem at first. The problem is what happens over time. Because here's the part nobody says out loud. The longer you avoid choosing a direction, the harder choosing becomes. Not because options disappear, but because you don't grow into any of them. Skills don't compound, confidence doesn't build, identity stays vague. You're busy, but nothing is anchoring you. And suddenly, a few years pass, you look around and realize you've been getting ready for a life that you never actually started. And that's when the anxiety is going to kick in. Not panic, just the quiet feeling that you're behind without knowing exactly why. And when people say keep your options open, they usually don't mean it in a literal sense. They're not saying you should never choose anything. And on paper, this sounds reasonable, especially when you're young, especially when you're unsure. But in practice, keeping your options usually looks very specific. It may look like bouncing around career ideas without ever staying long enough to develop a real skill. It looks like starting projects and dropping them as soon as the novelty wears off. It looks like constantly researching, planning, preparing, and thinking, but rarely executing in a sustained way. It looks like telling yourself, I'm still figuring things out year after year without anything really changing. You might still be busy throughout this process. You might still be productive. You might even be disciplined in certain areas of your life. But none of that effort is pointing in one direction. Nothing is allowed to stick, and everything will stay temporary. And temporary effort is never going to compound. And that's the first thing people miss. Progress doesn't come from movement alone. It comes from sustained movement in a single direction. When everything is provisional, when everything is optional, when nothing is chosen deeply, you don't build momentum, you just stay in motion. And motion without direction feels productive until you look back and realize you haven't actually gone anywhere. And the reason this mindset spreads so easily, it's because it feels safe. If you don't choose, you can't choose wrong. You can't fail publicly. You can't regret your decision. You get to believe you're being patient instead of hesitant. And early on, there are no consequences. At 21, staying flexible feels normal. At 23, it still feels reasonable. At 25, you might tell yourself you're just on your own timeline. But something starts happening underneath that you may not notice yet. And here's the part that nobody explains clearly. When you stay undecided for too long, you don't just lack direction, you start to lose trust in yourself. You stop trusting your ability to make decisions. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop trusting your capacity to follow through, because you've never actually practiced committing to something long enough to see it through. Every decision starts to feel heavy, even small ones. You second guess constantly. You hesitate longer than you should. You compare yourself to others more than you want to admit. You might feel anxious, but you can't really point to a specific reason why. And that's when people start saying things like, I feel behind, but I don't know why. I feel lost even though I'm doing things. I don't feel confident in my direction even though nothing is technically wrong. This is where that feeling comes from. And it's not that you failed, it's not that you're incapable, it's that nothing in your life has been allowed to become solid enough to anchor you. Identity doesn't form in open space. Identity forms through repetition, through responsibility, through staying with something long enough for friction to shape you. When you avoid commitment, you avoid that friction. And without friction, there really is no identity. So let's walk through this practically. At 22, you're exploring. Totally fine. At 24, you're still keeping options open. At 27, you might look around and realize other people have momentum, clarity, leverage. Not because they're smarter, but because they chose earlier. Meanwhile, you feel like you're still warming up, and it's not because you failed. It's because nothing was allowed to stick. And let me make this real for a second. Before I got clean, my entire life was built around not choosing. I didn't choose a direction. I didn't choose an identity. I sure as hell was not choosing a career. Everything stayed open because committing would have forced me to face myself, and I didn't want to do that. Keeping my options open wasn't freedom, it was straight up avoidance. I told myself I was figuring things out, but in reality I was postponing responsibility and slowly unaliving myself. And the longer I stayed in that space, the more disconnected I felt from who I actually was. I wasn't building anything, I was literally just surviving. Here's what changed when I got clean at 21. Recovery forced commitment out of me. and not in some motivational kind of way, in a very real, uncomfortable way. I had to commit to a routine, a direction, a version of myself I couldn't escape from. And that's when something unexpected happened. Life started to solidify. Not overnight, not dramatically, but very slowly, effort started to make complete sense again. Because when you commit to something, progress becomes visible, identity becomes clearer, confidence has something to attach to. Commitment gives your life weight, and without weight, nothing is going to feel meaningful. When I went to treatment, I was sent out to California. I didn't have everything figured out. I had $1,000 to my name and my savings, the clothes on my back, and my good intentions. But for the first time, I chose a direction. I committed to staying clean, rebuilding my body, getting in the best shape of my life, helping other people in recovery and other people who struggle with PTSD, trauma, mental health, all that type of stuff, and showing up consistently. That commitment didn't limit me, it just grounded me, and from there, I got in the best shape of my life. I built a real support circle. I found a relationship that actually worked despite the modern dating scene. I started working at a treatment center, helping people who were where I used to be. And I finally got to start a business a little bit over a month ago, and I'm excited to document that on this channel. And all of that came after I stopped keeping my options open. Now zoom out. This is what people get wrong about commitment. People think commitment limits you, but commitment doesn't limit you. It's going to ground you. It gives your effort somewhere to land. It gives your identity something to attach to. It gives your confidence a foundation. When you commit to something, even imperfectly, progress will become visible, and you can see yourself getting better. You can feel the momentum. You can trust yourself a little bit more. And once you trust yourself, decisions will stop feeling so heavy. And this is why this problem is so much worse for people in their 20s today. Our generation has more options than any generation before us. Career paths, side hustles, online business, lifestyles, cities, identities. You can see every possible version of life on your phone. And when you can see every option, committing to one's going to feel like losing the others. And that's the psychological trap behind this. But here's the truth. You don't lose options by committing. You're just creating leverage. Most options only become valuable after depth. And this is exactly why I started making videos about 5-6 months ago. And why I started my AI automation business a little over a month ago. I didn't wait until I had perfect clarity. I chose a direction, something I knew was possible, and I committed to learning. I committed to being bad at first. I committed to showing up consistently. And only after that commitment did things start opening up. I've learned a lot about financial awareness this year. I've been learning a lot about investing, skill development, long-term thinking, and vision. Direction came first and options came later. And that's the pattern people miss. And it's worth mentioning all the other benefits that you get from this stuff. It's genuinely made me a better person, more patient, more disciplined. And that's going to sprinkle throughout your entire life. The real cost of keeping your options open isn't failure, it's stagnation. So there's no momentum, no story, no confidence, and life feels like a draft and not something you're actually living. And years pass faster than you expect. I'm telling you, time is getting faster and faster. And that's why this hits so hard in your 20s. Because that's when commitment compounds the most. And waiting is always going to have a cost. It is not neutral. You lose time, you lose confidence, you lose momentum, and momentum is everything. And the real cost of keeping your options open is not failure. It's living in a permanent state of almost. You're almost started, almost committed, almost confident. Years will disappear in that spot. And one day you'll realize the issue wasn't choosing wrong, it was never choosing at all. So if you're in your 20s and you're watching this and you feel unanchored, this isn't because you're broken, it's because your life is asking you to choose a direction. Not forever and not perfectly, just long enough for something to grow. Because direction is going to create momentum, and momentum creates clarity. And that's how you win. If y'all enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate every one of you. We're going to keep going, we're going to keep documenting the journey, and I'm excited to bring y'all with. Peace out.